So there's really no reason for me to believe in the theory of evolution, and there's no reason for me to believe in the cosmic bang. Because really, even if there was a Big Bang, there is no way of forms of atoms, little atoms that just floating up in the sky kind of combined it together and made a huge, gigantic explosion that created this. I tell this a lot in my videos.
You basically think this happened.
Smoke weed every day.
What is up, heathens? How is everybody doing today? I hope that you guys are doing all right. I'm doing pretty fantastic. But anyways, so tonight we're talking about 100% proof that God exists. You've never heard this stuff before. I can guarantee you that this Christian is completely and utterly original, and he definitely has all of the right arguments to prove that God exists. I mean, look at him. He looks like he's from the Midwest, maybe. I don't know. He sounds maybe New Jersey. I don't know. He sounds weird to me. I'm Southern, though, so, I mean, that kind of makes sense.
How's it going, guys?
No, it's going pretty good there, man. I'm so happy you're here with us tonight.
This is Pastor Chris Holzer here. Welcome back to the Theist channel. I am a theist Christian. I believe in Lord Jesus Christ and God. Now, the common answer today from a lot of atheists and for all kinds of people all around the world, even religious people, is there any proof of a God?
I would like to know if there's any proof for a God. We actually had a very big discussion on the page about this today. A lot of people said that I was pretty theist-like in that I can't claim to know that God exists or not. And of course, I'd be leaning on the not existing part. I can't claim to know that God doesn't exist, but all of the evidence given, for God doesn't lend any kind of justified belief to think that he does exist. So that's why I call myself an agnostic atheist. A lot of people on the page were like, hey, you're just trying to make excuses for your agnosticism. That's just ridiculous. I don't have to make any kind of excuses for agnosticism. For one thing, agnosticism can apply to both theists and atheists, and I fall in the I don't know category of atheism.
See, this is a very common question among a lot of people. People ask this all the time. Is there really proof of God? Is there really proof of God? Well, I used to ask this question when I was 14 years old. Because, I grew up as a Catholic with my parents, going to church every day, every Sunday, having a feast, praying to Jesus, doing the daily prayers. And then at a time when I was 13, 14, I started questioning, okay, am I going to church and am I praying to God and doing his prayers because my parents are telling me to do it, or because he's actually real?
This is actually a really good question for him to ask himself. It's good for anybody that believes in any certain thing to ask whether or not you're just believing it to believe it because you're being told to, or because, you have good evidence to support it. So I commend him for thinking this, but at the same time, he goes a little sideways, and obviously he didn't actually apply a lot of critical thinking to his position. Well, I don't know. He might have. I won't speak too early.
And so I started doing my own research on questionings.
It is kind of odd how if he were to be born in a different geographic location, he would most likely be a different religion. He would have just as much belief in, Allah if he was born in the right area, or Buddha or anything else. So it's just kind of odd how most people that are in Christian regions are Christian, and most people that are in Islamic regions are Islamic, at least how they start out.
Now, for people who do not know me, I am not only a pastor, but I have studied philosophy, Christian philosophy. I've studied science and theology, religious sciences. I've studied quite a lot. I'm 25 years old for the people who do not know. A lot of people think that I'm 17 or 18. Yeah, I look like it, but
that's because you've been sitting inside for way too long. I know. I sit inside a lot. I got a sit-down job. My doctor tells me I got a vitamin D deficiency. I'm like, no, I don't. I'm just Puerto Rican and I block out all the sun.
I'm actually 25. So I do have some knowledge.
I'm 25. I got knowledge. I got knowledge down pat. I'm sorry. When I was 25, I didn't have a lot of knowledge. Looking back now, I would say that I knew next to shit about life or anything like that. That's why it took me a while to actually get to the point where I felt comfortable speaking about my beliefs. I wanted to be sure in it that 25 didn't know jack shit.
But besides, I'm getting off topic like I always do. Back to the question, is there any proof that there's a God?
No, there is no proof there is God. Thank you and good night. But he's got like 7 more minutes of video.
And the answer is yes. But is there any proof that there's science can prove God? And the answer is no. Science cannot prove God. And a lot of scientists say, and atheists say, like Lawrence Krauss, why not? If God exists, then why can't we prove him using science?
That is an excellent question, too. If God does exist in this reality, then we should be able to detect him in some kind of way. It really is kind of odd how we don't have any kind of, indication that a God exists. What do we call something that claims to exist, but at the same time, in fact, does not exist in this reality? That would be mythical shit. That would be stuff that doesn't actually exist at all, and nothing that we can't detect it in any way, we can't perceive it in any way, we can't test for it in any way. So for all intents and purposes, it just does not exist.
Well, the simple answer is that you cannot prove a spiritual being using science because you can't simply measure a God. You can't measure God. You can't say, God, I want to measure you.
According to the Christian Bible, depending on whether or not you're in the Old Testament or the New Testament, you either can talk to God or you cannot talk to God. It's really kind of vague on it, but let's assume that you can't talk to God. Honestly, I don't think in any situation you'd be able to look up at the sky and be like, God, can I measure your nuts, please? I would. I'd be like, hey, God, how big are your balls? I mean, you allowed the Holocaust to go on forever. Why the fuck, man? Maybe he was scratching his balls because they're so fucking huge. He's taking a nap.
God is an almighty spirit, a spirit that is in another dimension, something that is in between space, time, matter, and earth. A place.
Okay, so God now is in another dimension outside of this space-time and physical reality. Why do you believe he's fucking there? If he exists outside of everything, what is the proof for his existence?
That we do not know about until we die.
Okay, so we don't know about it until we die. Well, what if I said you won't know about the pink snuffleupagus until you die? He exists outside of time, space, and matter. There's nothing like, okay, for these kind of claims, you have to be able to discern this actual existence of God from the existence of other things that can't possibly exist, or well, are less likely to exist, I would say.
As we call the afterlife, or the Romans call that afterlife. But it's so interesting, that question, is there any proof of God? Yes. Now, the thing that where I say, yes, there is proof of God. Well, Professor Lawrence Krauss, which I hope to one day debate.
Oh, man, he's got a big set of balls.
If he ever gives me a chance, says that the universe came out of nothing, and I simply have proof of it. Yet he has really no proof of it, because I've read his recent books, and I've also seen his commentary of him trying to tell us how the Earth formed. Okay,
actually, Lawrence Krauss doesn't talk about how the Earth formed. He talks about, like, how to get a universe from nothing. And to boil it down into very basic layman's terms, virtual particles can pop in and out of existence, and considering the quantum nature of those virtual particles, it's very plausible to get something out of what we perceive as nothing. This nothing isn't really nothing. It's a scientific nothing, which still has energy in it. So with that being the case, virtual particles can pop in and out of existence, and at some point that could have sparked the Big Bang. That is basically the hypothesis in really, really, really jagged layman's terms, rough layman's terms of Krauss's hypothesis. And he's got a lot of science behind it, and he's got a lot of great math and astronomy and astrophysics and everything like that behind it to actually make it a very viable model.
Out of nothing. And he simply says that there is a loophole. A couple atoms blinded together and smashed and made a Big Bang. And that created Earth.
That is not the hypothesis of Lawrence Krauss. Atoms cling-clanged into each other, and then boom, Earth exists exactly as it appears today. That is not Lawrence Krauss's hypothesis whatsoever. Like, that is not it. I love how he says, I've read his book and I understand it. But then he comes out with this shit of atoms clanging together and then creating Earth. That just sounds like, that sounds like a textbook creationist way to understand these complex hypotheses.
But if you really truly research that, according to Darwin's theory and Isaac Newton, it's actually, there's no way that a tiny organism smashing together can make this around me. So he's using Einstein and Isaac Newton to disprove Lawrence Krauss's hypothesis. But you see, the thing is that with Lawrence Krauss's hypothesis, you have to take into account quantum mechanics, and quantum mechanics didn't exist during Einstein's time or during Isaac Newton's time. Definitely not Isaac Newton. So I mean, you have to understand that those things are working without half of the picture of reality as far as physics is concerned. Just the trees, the sky, the sun, and the trillions of billions of galaxies. That can't just be magically created from a few atoms binding together.
I love this about creationists. Okay, I just fucking love it because they're like, oh, two atoms smashing together and magically creating the Earth is just so improbable. Oh, okay, all right. So that's magical and mystical, right? A bearded guy in the sky bending over and farting the universe out as he lights his own fart. That is more probable and less magical. Like even taking my little bit of a lowball hit there towards the creationist theory, you're talking about a supernatural being that just like that and creates 99% of the known universe, and then he spends 6 days on a single planet, and this is less magical than Lawrence Krauss's hypothesis, which is backed by evidence, whereas we don't have evidence for this magical being creating shit all at once. It really blows my mind when creationists are like, oh, well, the Big Bang is just magical. Oh, because your God isn't? Jesus spit in the eye of a man in order to try to cure his blindness. And when that didn't work, he rubbed dirt in it and boom, he cleared his blindness. He cured his blindness. How is that not magical?
Not enough power. It's not enough stuff to say that all of us, including me, my brain, my hands, my fingers, this earth, how humans think, how we know the difference between good and bad, our morals. If we all came from no God, we would have no morals.
Did you hear that, honey? If we came from no God, we would have no morals. Like, that is the laziest bit of thinking I have ever heard from a Christian in a while. Morals are social constructs. They are constructed by our higher functioning brains. We needed them in order for our societies to grow larger. It's part of being a social group, a social animal. So, I mean, more consciousness, morals, all of that kind of stuff is determined by our own brains. None of that stuff that you listed there in that gish gallop of shit is not connected to God whatsoever. We have biological reasons for everything that you listed. We have natural processes that explain everything that you listed. Just because you're too lazy to actually Google a few minutes and bring up some kind of Wikipedia article to explain it to you in layman's fucking terms, the answers to your questions, doesn't mean that they're wrong.
I said this in a recent little debate that I had with Mr. Bloom, who wrote The God Problem. If you ever seen that, if you don't see the video, you can check on my YouTube channel. I'll be changing the name to Theist Channel pretty soon. You can check my recent YouTube channel, me debating with an atheist who did the book, The God Problem. And I spoke about this, that if we were not on Earth, there would be no sense of living if there was no God. Without no God, we would not know the difference between right or wrong.
Right and wrong are subjective terms. So I mean, as long as you have a agreed upon base, then basic set of laws or moral constructs or whatnot, then, I mean, you have this concept of right and wrong. The concept of right and wrong have changed vastly throughout time and space. So I don't understand how you're connecting this to some kind of all-powerful God. We would see true objective morality if some kind of God laid it out and it was, true regardless of time and place, which is what objective means.
So I said also that my famous thing is that I can prove God using simple mathematics.
Oh shit, now we're getting into the proof here, honey. Simple fucking mathematics. Let's do this stuff.
You say that nothing created everything makes no sense, because we can know mathematically nothing means zero. And when you add 0 to 0 to 0 to 0, it always ends up to 0. Even though that there's some little atoms that pop up in a loophole, it really doesn't make a difference. It's still 0.
No. The little atoms that pop up, like there being still energy in this vacuum of space where it's considered a scientific nothing is very important. Because what you round to 0 is actually a finite number. It's just very, very small. You add enough of those up and you'll end up getting something on the other side other than 0. Technically, you always get something other than 0, but over time it adds up and you could get 1. I mean, this is basic calculus. The limits as something approaches, some finite number is going to equal some finite number. I mean, this is basic maths here.
Little atoms can't combine together to make a big bang in the universe and the Earth.
You don't have any proof to say that. You don't have any proof, any evidence, or anything like that to say that two atoms can't collide together and produce an entire universe. And even then, I don't think Krauss just says two little atoms at one point in time. Like, these were the only two fucking atoms out there. They managed to crash into each other. Kind of like when you're first learning to drive and you hit the only tree in a field. It's not like that at all. So it's a straw man on Lawrence Krauss's argument. And it just shows your incredulity. It shows your incredulity on this entire subject.
Just can't. Well, how do you know? Well, according to Isaac Newton, you'd be surprised. You can look this up on his autobiography. He simply says there is no way that two atoms can make an explosion and magically come together. It has to come from an intelligent design, because the world simply works like a clock. The sun comes up and the sun goes down. Trees die, leaves die, they come back up, and they relive again.
Tide goes in, tide goes out. You can't fucking explain that right there, okay? Woo, doggy. You did not just use the O'Reilly fallacy right there. I mean, that's not an official fallacy name or anything. I just made it up. That's the O'Reilly fallacy. It's just an argument from design. You can't just say that, there are all these things that work in tandem in the universe, therefore God exists. That's a ridiculous notion. It's a non sequitur. You can't go from one to the other because they don't connect.
This is always, there's seasons, there's trees fall, there's leaves fall during the fall, and then they come back in the spring. That can't just come from some cosmic bang that was formed from a loophole from tiny little atoms combined together.
You don't have any evidence to say that Lawrence Krauss is wrong. You're just basically sitting there stating, oh, that can't happen. But Lawrence Krauss has information, has data, has proofs to show you that it can.
You cannot say nothing created this. It's impossible. It's a 0% chance.
No, it's not. It's not a 0. It's a very low percent chance. I will say that it's very low on the probability scale. Given enough time, if you will, how we perceive time or whatnot, but given enough of it, it can happen.
And I'm not making this up. You can check out Isaac Newton's autobiography of the creation of the universe. Now, besides that, I can also prove God, saying, what an intelligent way of atmosphere. We have a protection around the earth from the sun, not burning us and everything. And even though that, if you know that the earth goes around and it moves, we can't feel anything. You know why? I don't remember the name, but it's the fear that is protecting the earth. You see,
the electromagnetic field? Is that what or is he talking about the atmosphere? Or is he talking about gravity, which holds the atmosphere on the earth in order to do it? Is it the iron core to our earth that gives us the magnetic field? I mean, to say that, oh, we wouldn't be here without, X component to the earth, that's to say, well, if we were on a different planet, life wouldn't exist. It's like, oh, okay, true. If we were on a different planet that didn't have these things, life wouldn't exist. But because we are here and we did evolve here, then it doesn't help us at all to suggest that, well, if this wasn't here, then life wouldn't be here. Like, that doesn't help us at all. It doesn't provide any kind of proof for God. Just because a certain set of circumstances led to us being here doesn't mean that God exists. Now, these values that they want to say are so hard-lined that they can't change, that's horseshit. They can change. Like the atmosphere in general, the composition of it has changed. The magnetic field around the earth has increased in intensity and decreased in intensity all throughout time. So it's not as cut and dry as he's making it want to seem like. It's a complete fallacy to say, oh, we have an atmosphere, we have magnetic field that protects us from gamma radiation and all this other radiation from outside of the earth. Like, saying all those things proves that this place was designed doesn't account for the natural processes that made the planet have those particular properties. And just because those particular properties are beneficial to life doesn't mean that they were designed to be that way. It's more of a natural consequence.
Can't come from nothing. Do you think that just a couple of tiny atoms combined together and said, okay, I'm going to make the earth, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to make trees, I'm going to make plants, I'm going to make an atmosphere, a magnetic field. I'm just going to protect everything. There is no way that nothing can't create the atmosphere.
That is a straw man fallacy right there, because nobody has ever said that nothing created the atmosphere, or that nothing created the earth, or that nothing did anything other than start the Big Bang, start the great expansion of the universe. Nobody has said that or proposed that or anything like that.
There's no way, no possible magnetic field. There's no way that nothing can't just decided to make a magnetic field to protect us from the sun and the earth. It has to be done by an intelligent design known as human beings call God.
No, that's not the only answer. You're totally disregarding all natural processes that led to the earth being a habitable place for life. It's life arising on the earth is a natural consequence of the circumstances around how the earth formed and everything that led up to it being a habitable place.
The intelligent design. There's a man also that I also spoke about in a recent video I did today about. It's called Darwin's Doubts, that there is an intelligent design, and Darwin actually had a tough time about him being an atheist, because he says there is kind of no way that nothing can create the earth.
Okay, Darwin's doubt, Frank Turek brings this up a lot, Darwin's doubt. It has no bearing on evolution, Big Bang, or the design of the universe or anything like that. This is a complete ding-ding red herring argument in order to obfuscate, the discussion being had. Darwin, I would not say was an atheist. I'm still kind of researching his religious views for a collaboration video I'm doing, but from what I can tell, he was a deist. He rejected the Christian theology as it's traditionally held, but he did have a grandiose sense of a supreme being or whatnot. He had a more deistic God, if memory serves. If I'm wrong about that, let me know in the comments. But Darwin's doubt doesn't hold water in this conversation at all. There's no point in it being here.
So not only Isaac Newton says it, but Charles Darwin himself, the great genius of the creator of the theory of evolution and the theory of the Big Bang, says even though that it's accepted by most sciences, doesn't mean it's still a theory. So it's not 100% legit.
Actually, Darwin said that his biological knowledge, like his knowledge of biology and evolution and everything like that, actually convinced him that there was no intelligent designer behind it all. That it's more likely caused by natural processes. I don't think that he was all that sure about it, but I mean, at the same time, I mean, he didn't say, "Oh yeah, definitely intelligently designed, and I'm totally trashing my theory of evolution." That's not at all what happened, and it just shows that he only listens to Christian apologetics. He only listens to those that pander to him.
So there's really no reason for me to believe in the theory of evolution, and there's no reason for me to believe in the cosmic bang. Because really, even if there was a Big Bang, there is no way of forms of atoms, little atoms that just floating up in the sky kind of combined it together and made a huge, gigantic explosion that created this. I tell this a lot in my videos.
You basically think this happened.
Smoke weed every day. Smoke weed every day.
But back to my rule about proving God using mathematics. I am not a genius.
I am not a genius. No shit. You're barely part of, I don't know, 7th grade biology.
Person who studied a lot. I'm a person who is very educated. I'm a person who is smart, who studied a lot in school, and I'm an ordained minister.
I've studied a lot in school and I'm an ordained minister, so definitely trust me because I'm a fucking authority as shit. I love how those that have the least amount of knowledge proclaim to have the most amount of knowledge anytime they get a chance. There was that one guy that I did he did a flat earth video and he was like, "I am not an idiot." And he said it so seriously, but it's the fact that you had to say it in your video that makes me think that you're kind of an idiot.
And I know the Torah and the Bible, and I've studied both. I know that there is a God, not because I believe there's a God, but because I know. Because there's no other explanation for the earth and us being here besides an intelligent design.
But you see, you need evidence. You can't just say, "Oh, I don't understand these scientific principles, therefore God." Like that's just God of the gaps, personal incredulity, ding ding. Any of those things.
I hope that you enjoy this video and really listen to what I say before you angry YouTubers just start saying how wrong I am and say,
Hold on. I gotta comment on this video real quick and be all angry atheist. Fuck you, you Christian. I hate you because you're a Christian. Hate. Fuck you. Fuck your mother. Wait, hold on. That's what Muslims say is the whole fuck your mother thing. You're stupid.
how lousy I am because you can't stand the proof. Atheists cannot stand proof that is given to them because simply they want to ignore the proof because in their brain they just say, no, why should I go to church and why should I pray?
Oh yeah, I'm totes an atheist. I totes believe in evolution. Well, accept evolution. I totes accept the Big Bang Theory and all that kind of shit because I don't want to go to church. Fairly certain there's a plenty of Christians out there that accept all of those things, well, except for the atheist part, do all of those things scientifically and still go to church. It's not because I don't want to go to church. I mean, I don't want to go to church, but it's not because of the fucking Big Bang.
Simply, I don't consider that atheism. I consider that laziness. Pure laziness.
I'm an atheist because I'm lazy as shit. Obviously.
You can consider how ignorant and nasty how I am. You can consider whatever you want to believe, but what I say is true, and you have to admit, my actual explanation of there's a God is pretty damn good.
No. This is totes not good at all, okay? You did not provide any kind of evidence to suggest you have this knowledge. You did not provide any kind of evidence to convince anybody that your knowledge is accurate. The way that you have knowledge is that you just don't accept the scientific explanation, and therefore you have knowledge that God exists, or you know that God created this, the earth, or the universe in general. You just claim it. You don't actually prove it. You don't provide any kind of evidence. You just reject the scientific explanations and you say, oh, no, God did it because Bible and church, and you're fucking lazy for being a scientific atheist.
You can't say mine's bad. So please, I would like to hear your comments, and I really want you to tell me how you feel on what I just said of the proof of
I can sum it up into a few words. It's dumb as shit.
God. I love you guys. God bless you. Again, welcome back to the Theist channel. My name is Pastor Chris Holzer, your host. Peace.
Peace out, motherfuckers. Definitely come to church this Sunday. I need those donations. Well, I mean, that was kind of a big letdown, right? I was expecting 100% proof that God exists, but all we got is a gish gallop of intelligent design, of the fallacy of design, the personal incredulity, straw man arguments. Like, this was chock full. This like, if you wanted to show anybody, it's like, why don't you believe God exists? Oh, motherfucker, I gotta show you this one video. Let me get to it real quick. You see this dumb son of a bitch right here? Yeah. This is why I don't believe. None of it makes fucking sense, and you gotta totally shove your brain up your asshole in order to believe it. Yep, I will, I'll see everybody later. Y'all have a nice night, I guess. Y'all definitely come back on Monday, and I will see you heathens later. Don't forget, stand up, use your voice, like the wristbands say.